Well, my neighbors are still feeding deer, so,
You do it like that.
which is even more cruel because I'm sitting there watching. And 7 animals
Yeah.
that need freezer space walking through my backyard.
Who? Oh, okay.
That one doe,
I know who that is. That's fine.
200 pounds dead. She's a monster. She is, she's a bitch. Yeah.
Well, it is 6 o'clock. I would like to call to order the November 12th County Board meeting. Please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Moment of silence. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. The roll call shows we have 20 supervisors present. One. Item 4 would be approval of the agenda. I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Omar approves.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the agenda. Any discussion? Okay, we will call the vote. Okay, release. The agenda is unanimously approved. Item 5 is members of the public wishing to be heard. We have one signed up, Paul Holzinger. Please.
Hello,
Thank you.
County Board members. My name is Paul Holsinger, live in Eau Claire. I'm here on an agenda item. I believe it's actually just got informed it's on your consent agenda, so maybe I don't speak, but it's regarding the Adams property rezoning. Here to answer any questions that you might have regarding that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And with that, move on to item 6 is the consent agenda. Entertain a motion to approve.
So moves. Lynn seconds.
So we have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Are there any questions, comments on this? Okay, if none, we will call the vote. The consent agenda is unanimously approved. Item 7 are reports. Under general reports, we have the West Central Wisconsin Regional Planning Commission report. Scott Allen.
Good evening. Thank you, Chairman Hall and members of the County Board of Supervisors here at Chippewa County. Thank you for the opportunity to be with you here this evening. We want to give to you our annual update. Last year we were here, I think, just a little bit earlier than today, but wanted to come back each year moving forward to give you again kind of that annual update of things that have been occurring within Chippewa County, but also the region as a whole. So with that, this is our kind of our standard presentation, but tailored towards Chippewa County projects and programs. With me as well tonight is our Regional Business Fund Manager, Toby Lemahue, and she'll be speaking at the end specifically on the Regional Business Fund component of the West Central Wisconsin Regional Planning Commission. Again, I'm Scott Allen. I'm the Executive Director of West Central Regional Planning. So we'd like to kind of just give a quick overview of regional planning commissions in the state of Wisconsin. I'll show you a map here in a moment. There are 9 within the state. We've been around as your regional planning commission since 1971, and we were charged at the time and still continue forward with these types of projects and programs. I'll talk a little bit more about kind of what we do within those areas and kind of how we've distilled those down over the decades to provide services in our 7-county region. You can see it here. We're number 9. I like to say we're only last alphabetically. And again, we serve the 7-county region here in west central Wisconsin, with Chippewa County essentially right in the middle of all of that. To the north of you is moving into the Northwest Regional Planning Commission, and to the south is Mississippi River Regional Planning Commission. I mentioned that in part because we do, work in conjunction with a number of our neighboring regional planning commissions on several projects, and talk a little bit about that coming up here as well. We are governed by 21 member commissions with the 7 counties. That's 3 per county. Again, appointments are made by county boards every even-numbered year, so kind of in conjunction with your spring elections. So that did happen here this year. And in this case, no change from Chippewa County, so we're glad to see some longevity growing on the commission. And again, we also have within the commission an executive committee. So it's 1 from each of those 3. So 7-member executive committee, kind of operating in more of like an administrative role. They meet alternate months from the commission itself. Commission meets odd-numbered months. So here we are in one of those, November, and they actually meet typically the 2nd Thursday of the month. So their next meeting is coming up here on Thursday. Try to rotate around the region to kind of get a snapshot of things that are changing and progressing around the region, each county. But this one, we will be at our home base of the staff offices in Eau Claire at Banbury Place. More specifically, here we are with the map of the 7-county region. You can see 3 of county board supervisors are assigned to that commission. So thank you to Supervisor Romeyer here up front, Supervisor Seidlitz in the back, and right up front are your chairman, Supervisor Hull. So thank you all for being a regular part of the commission. Both you and Barron County assign all 3 of your members or commissioners as county board supervisors. The other counties take the other option, which is 2 county board supervisors and 1 citizen member. So it's kind of a good mix of county board supervisors and a few citizen members from some of the other counties. You can see the asterisk there. It might be a little hard to see, but those are the executive committee members. So Supervisor Romeyer is representing the commission for Chippewa County on the executive committee. This is also a little bit hard to read, but again, this is all in your packet as well. So thank you to Chippewa County staff for putting all these materials in your packet. We'll point to the folders that were handed out just before the meeting as well here in a moment. But this is our organizational chart. So this is staff of the commission. There are 15 members, 14 full-time. You can see there the yellow are administrative staff. I suppose myself included in that. We have 9 professional planners, and then 3 that are working with the Regional Business Fund specifically. And again, Toby will talk a little bit more about that directly. Always like to point out that for comparison, Doug Clary in county planning, we work pretty regularly and closely with Doug here at Chippewa County. So, Doug is a planner and zoning administrator, and we have similar staff in the commission highlighted there in blue. So just real quickly, kind of the goal of the Regional Planning Commission and many regional planning commissions is to assist units of government planning for physical, social, and economic development needs of the region. I do that in 3 different ways. We serve as a coordinating organization between federal and state agencies and local governments, starting with the county and kind of working down to cities, villages, and towns. We assist those units of government working on issues that occur at a regional level, but also specific to their own community as well. And then we provide technical assistance, advice, and services directly to those individual units of government. I'll give some examples here in Chippewa County in just a moment. But again, we kind of help fill a gap in a lot of communities that don't have access to, a Doug Clary, for example, or only have a Doug Clary and no additional support staff in that regard. So that's kind of where we come in to help take on some of those larger projects and programs. So as I mentioned, kind of the state statutes back in 1971 highlighted a lot of different types of areas that we work in, and we've kind of distilled those or summarized those into these 4 different areas: economic development, transportation, community development, and conservation and mapping. The photo here is actually, we had a booth at Farm Technology Days back in August here in Chippewa County. So if you were able to attend that, you may have seen us there, at least our booth, before we all got washed out on the last day. So, but we were there till that happened. And again, both the Regional Planning Commission, but also Regional Business Fund had a separate booth, and we were, again, sharing that space together. I'll talk a little bit more about the Rain to Rivers display you see there in the front left. And they are also a component of what we assist with in the region as well. So in terms of these different categories, to kind of highlight some of those specific types of projects or programs that are each: economic development. One of those that we really emphasize quite a bit is kind of project consultation, grant writing, and administration. So we do a lot of grant applications and also administer a lot of the grants. Again, assisting with that kind of capacity issue a number of communities have, and then also the expertise side of things as well in terms of putting those grants together. So that's a lot of what we do in our office. We also put together county economic population profiles, and that's what's in your folder on the left side is this year's county economic profile for Chippewa County. Those are all also on our website, so if you want to see the other 6 counties as well and kind of how things compare and contrast. Transportation is a big thing as well, especially with Chippewa County being home to Chippewa Falls, Village Lake Hallie, and a few of the neighboring towns. We help facilitate the Metropolitan Planning Organization, so the MPO for Chippewa and Eau Claire. And you may see us working in that arena, especially in terms of the sewer service area plan that is currently being updated. So we may be back before you at some point, probably mid next year, to talk more about that as that gets finalized. Again, I'll highlight some more specific projects within Chippewa County, but here's a list of those with transportation. So we have staff more specifically dedicated to a lot of the transportation side of things, both rural and urban. Community development is kind of a big kind of catch-all for a lot of different things that we do. You can see here, again, grant writing administration falls into this as well. But we also do hazard mitigation planning, emergency preparedness. We do those on a countywide level with updating hazard mitigation plans. So that's one thing you'll see kind of a more countywide level. Same with outdoor recreation plans. We do those on more of a local level, but also countywide outdoor recreation plans as well. One thing I will mention, I don't believe is in the list coming up because it's just getting underway. We are working on a regional outdoor recreation plan, and that includes 4 counties in our region and 4 counties to the south in the Mississippi River RPC. So that's just getting underway. You may have seen some of the news on that. We had USDA staff from DC come in and have announced that grant at the end of July. We're out at Beaver Creek Reserve in Eau Claire County to kind of learn about that and get that launched. So that's a $70,000 grant to do a regional outdoor recreation plan focused on rural business development. So really focused on the rural side of kind of tying in outdoor recreation with rural businesses. So that too, you'll see some more surveys and such. We're looking to get those launched here before the end of the year with rural businesses and other stakeholders. So stay tuned for more of that. Conservation and mapping, we're doing some more work in the area, primarily the Eau Claire River watershed and the Red Cedar watershed. So kind of Dunn County, Eau Claire County with Chippewa kind of sharing some boundaries there. And so watch for more of that. We're doing some watershed planning with those groups coming up as well. So those are things kind of coming up, but I want to talk a little bit about what has happened over the last 12 to 18 months since we were last before you. In terms of programs, we'll start with programs and talk also about projects and give some examples. In coordination with the Public Service Commission, we've been facilitating and providing administration on the regional broadband implementation group. So there are kind of a number of regional groups throughout the state that the regional planning commissions have been facilitating and assisting to help with that expansion of broadband throughout the region. So that's kind of where we've been helping, again, kind of facilitating that side of things. And we've also been participating in the West Central Wisconsin Rail Coalition, also the Chippewa St. Croix Passenger Rail Committee. I'm glad these don't have acronyms because I would be struggling with those, but there is that from Eau Claire through Chippewa County over to St. Croix County in the Hudson area, looking at focusing on more specifically some future passenger rail service in the region. So that group was able to secure some funding, and they're doing some scoping with a consultant right now. We're not involved with that part of it, but we are involved with kind of facilitating some of those overarching meetings region-wide. I mentioned the Rain to Rivers. We also staff that stormwater outreach coordinator position for Rain to Rivers of Western Wisconsin. That was that, it's an educational kind of component of stormwater permits that a number of communities are required to hold, and those include Chippewa County itself, City of Chippewa Falls, City of Eau Claire as well, including the portion in Chippewa County, Village of Lake Hallie, Town of Eagle Point, and Town of Lafayette. So they've all participating in kind of the educational part of that stormwater permit that's required in a number of those communities, so that we provide that educational component. We also provide safe routes to schools coordination for both the Bloomer and Chippewa Falls school districts. That is, we assist with a lot of, again, kind of education and outreach opportunities for improving access, called multimodal access. So more than just cars and buses from residences to schools, but also trying to kind of reinvigorate the walking and biking of students to various schools. So we assist those school districts with some of that programming. And again, as I mentioned, we prepare those annual economic profiles. In terms of projects, highlights a few here. Finished the Chippewa County Outdoor Recreation Plan. As I mentioned, there's kind of a regional version that's going to expand on that. Finished that this year. You can see that. It's kind of a every 5-year type of approach, whereas the comprehensive plan is about every 10 years. And we just finished the one for Chippewa Falls. I'll show image of that a little bit earlier this year. Completed the Village of Lake Hallie Bike and Ped Plan. Also completed a comprehensive plan for the Town of Lake Holcomb, their first ever. So not necessarily an update like we did with City of Chippewa Falls, but a new plan itself. Updating the Town of Anson comprehensive plan as we speak. And also just getting underway. So keep name dropping Doug Clary, but next week we'll be kind of doing some scoping with him to get that project underway for the Chippewa County comprehensive plan. So you'll see quite a bit of us in the next 12 to 18 months working on your comprehensive plan update as well. We also been doing some intersection studies, traffic studies with Village of New Auburn. As I mentioned, some transportation work we do. We use this new MyoVision Scout Plus camera. I'll show kind of image of what that looks like if you see that around. But looking at kind of doing intersection studies for the Village of New Auburn as they look at perhaps making some intersection traffic improvements up there. And then finally, we facilitated mapping installation of new Chippewa Valley bike route signs. You may have been seeing some of those around. I'll show a photo here in a moment. Here's some of those plans that we just helped conclude. City of Chippewa Falls comp plan in the town of Lake Holcomb. Again, certainly happy to share these with you. Some of these are on those city and village or town websites, but just a snapshot of the covers there. Here's that Chippewa Valley bike route sign, just an example of that. You may have seen those around. And there's a snapshot of the online map that we have also created that you can kind of track the different routes. They're color coded. They match the different signs and the color coding there as well. And again, those are kind of really speaks to the regionalism that we promote, because those are in City of Eau Claire, Village of Lake Hallie, and also City of Chippewa Falls. So they're in multi-jurisdictional effort there. Here's just a snapshot of what that MyoVision Scout Plus camera looks like. Again, it's not a license plate reader or anything like that. It's just, it counts different types of transportation happening. So, if there's a bicyclist going by, if there's a semi going by, and it just does a count of those things. And through that, we provide kind of an intersection counts or other data through that. So it's just a snapshot of what that looks like. It's probably hard to see that photo. Hopefully it's easier. I tried to blur out everything other than the camera, but essentially there's a large pole that gets attached to an existing utility pole. And then there's a camera right at the top, just a small like kind of webcam. So again, it's not, you know, super high resolution. It's just counting essentially blurry blobs like you see there. And there's a box at the bottom as well. So if you see that around, we have a sticker on there that says WCW RPC. That's a product that we were able to participate with a number of communities, but in Chippewa County, it's been primarily with a village of New Holcomb. Village of New Auburn. Town of Lake Holcomb was the comp plan. Apologize for that. And then a couple last photos before I turn things over to Toby in a moment. We also produce countywide capital improvement plan, CIP maps. This is just a snapshot of the Chippewa County one. So we tend to update that. Again, these are things that are part of your, I guess if you call it membership, as being a part of the Regional Planning Commission. These are things that we provide as a part of that, your participation and membership with us, things like this. Here's another snapshot of that as well, maybe a little bit better photo, kind of zooming in to see Chippewa Falls doing their CIP map. I mentioned Rain to Rivers. Here's just some snapshots of things that have been happening in Chippewa County. The Chippewa County Steel, there's one of the boards and the ice rink. You can see bottom left, have an ad there about being salt smart. And that's some of the latest kind of education we've been providing to private snow removal companies as well, just trying to help them be more resourceful and in their use of salt, which also helps with stormwater management, but as well as with their bottom line as well. So you can see there too, speaking, giving presentations and demonstrations to local classes in the area as well. So I'll close with some budget things and kind of, just then we'll turn it over to Toby, but here's our operational budget for 2024. I'd like to point out a couple wedges here. The 17%, the 10 o'clock to noon, 17 green wedge there, that 17% is our levy. So it ranges anywhere from 15 to 20% year to year. And that's, again, a statutorily defined calculated figure that we have each of the 7 counties provide. And again, it's a different number for each county based on your equalized value. And each March, the commission, so those that you assign to that commission, help determine what that amount will be. It was a 3% increase going into 2025. So fairly modest, and how that equates to numbers for Chippewa County, I'll show here in a moment. You can see just kind of how that budget amount has been since 2023, how it is this year, and then moving into next year. So it's about 3.4% for this year to next for Chippewa County, but again, 3% region-wide for all 7 counties. Bounce back just real quickly. That purple wedge, kind of bottom left, showing about a third of our budget comes through contracted services. So there, is an additional contract that we've entered in with you for that county comprehensive plan. That's part of that 34%. What we always like to point out, though, as well, is that, again, that's a service we provide, presumably and hopefully at a bit of a discount as you move forward doing those comprehensive plans and other plans. And again, that's the thing we try to, again, kind of cost share or match that with the levy amount. So that's kind of how those numbers generally work. So just real quickly, I'll close with this. Kind of benefits of regional planning. We too, we're essentially kind of like to call ourselves quasi-governmental. We operate on those state statutes, have that levying opportunity each year, and we operate with that same kind of public and fiscal accountability as other local governments. However, we do offer a neutral forum for exploring and resolving intergovernmental issues. I'd like to point out like sewer service area plans and such that we do, not just in Chippewa, Eau Claire, but in a couple other communities as well, Menominee and Hudson, for example. Provide an opportunity to partner and leverage funds. Toby will talk a little bit more about how those leveraging of private funds with the public dollars we're able to secure. Maintain a staff of those professionals, as I highlighted earlier, with a lot of background and expertise in the area. And then we fill in gaps in planning that can't be met by smaller communities, as I mentioned before, helping out, town of Lake Holcomb and Village of New Auburn with some traffic studies, those types of things that they don't necessarily have the capacity or funding to do on their own. Then we act as a repository for a lot of data and information like you see in those economic profiles as well. So finally, what else should you know about us? Again, because we're quasi-governmental and we all live and work here in the region, we share your commitment to the well-being of the region, counties, and communities. And we have those tools and expertise to help things move along and kind of partner alongside with the progress you're making here in Chippewa County. And again, we have that decades of experience, deeper connections in the region. Again, we too serve that public mission. As I mentioned, leverage funding, take on challenging tasks. Again, a lot of things that others may not be able to handle on their own. And then we're multi-jurisdictional missions. So again, we have all 7 counties. We range again from very rural, agriculturally focused county like Clark County in the east, all the way to a very urbanizing county, one of the fastest growing counties in the state, in St. Croix County. So we have a large range of topics and demographics and growth patterns that we deal with throughout the region. And we offer those unique services that are unavailable elsewhere. So with that, I'll turn it over to Toby, and then hopefully they'll have some time for questions afterwards.
Thank you, Scott.
All right, thank you. So I'm Toby Lemahue, and Scott just talked about what the services the Regional Planning Commission offers to communities, and I'm going to talk about what we can offer to businesses. So that's kind of how we differentiate. So specifically going to talk about the Regional Business Fund, a nonprofit that was formed by the Regional Planning Commission back in 1995 to administer business revolving loan funds. We have a separate board of directors that oversees the nonprofit 501c6, and there's a staffing contract between the Regional Planning Commission and the nonprofit Regional Business Fund. So Scott's my boss, and I work for the Regional Planning Commission, but we have a contract for staffing of this nonprofit. So essentially, what the nonprofit is it administers programs to businesses if they're not able to obtain traditional financing from a bank or a credit union. And I'll talk about a little bit about our programs. But this is a list of the nonprofit board members, and you'll see that there's one representative from each of our 7 counties. We have the same exact footprint as the Regional Planning Commission. And in Chippewa County is represented by Deb Chilson. That appointment is made by the Chippewa County EDC Board of Directors, and there's a tie with that organization, and that was set up years ago, and the county board had said that they should do that for you. And so I alluded to the programs that we have. I'm not going to go into details of all of the programs that we have, but essentially we are here again to not compete with the banks or credit unions. They do a great job and they should continue to do that, but rather we are able to provide that additional source of capital if a business is not able to obtain a traditional loan. In your packet on the right-hand side of the folder, I think are all of the Regional Business Fund items. So there's a brochure that you can see with some of the programs that are listed. My business card, I am the contact person if there is a business that's interested in financing or just talking through the programs. I could help talk through if they're eligible and then what program would best fit their needs. And there's also some examples in that annual report that we have. So all the information is in there. We also have a website. If you just Google Regional Business Fund, you'll find all of this there. Our applications live there as well. And we have a full process for taking those applications from businesses and getting them funding. In total, since 2007, we've assisted over 138 businesses with financing just in Chippewa County. And you can see the metrics there, and I'm just getting mine up in front of me. We've assisted 67 startup companies, and I'd say most of those startup companies have told us that they wouldn't have been able to start up had they not had this as an option for some funding, because essentially you're supposed to use all the other resources first and come to us kind of as that last resort. So we've done 141 loans. Total amounts that we've loaned out is $7.4 million. Jobs that were created with those funds were 527, and those that were retained were just about 500. So just some other metrics there. And then in private financing or borrower contributions or other equity is we're leveraging $66 million with those funds. So that's kind of how we play in and how we can kind of leverage and provide that additional source of capital. So then just some examples of businesses that we've assisted in Chippewa County. A to B Mobile Repair was a startup company that was looking for financing. They were, we require a downturn letter, so they were turned down from a bank or a credit union for financing, and they were able to obtain a loan through us for $25,000, and our funds were used for equipment. So it's listed there, vehicle lift, office furniture, small tools, and other equipment, and they're doing well. Next example is for our facade program. This program is meant to assist with downtown revitalization efforts. We provide a 1% interest loan to a business that's wanting to do any of those exterior renovations, so it's obviously a fairly good deal for them. And the total project cost for this in downtown Chippewa Falls for Collective Charms building just this summer was $60,000 that we were able to assist with. So you can see the before on the left-hand side there, and then the after, and I'm sure some of you have seen that transformation. So those, again, are meant to assist with those downtown revitalization efforts in the whole county. The next one, Auburn Coffee in New Auburn. If you have been there just this summer, they opened. They purchased that building. That the before is on the left there, and on the after, it's not quite there yet. They're still undergoing their facade renovation, but that's the rendering that they gave me. But we assisted them with both a micro loan for assisting with equipment purchases for their new coffee shop, and a facade loan to help with some of those exterior renovations, because that is in the village's downtown. So collectively, 2 loans there, one for $25,000 and one for $35,000. And then another example just north of Cadott for Crescent Meats, I'm sure many of you are familiar with. They were undergoing or almost done with their expansion project in north of Cadott, and we assisted with some of financing there too. So alongside bank financing, they utilized SBA financing. Obviously, they brought in some of their own funds, and then they had a grant as well. And then we as well came along in and helped them complete that project. So again, a gap financing tool in that way that we're plugging in that last piece of the puzzle. So just getting ready to finalize the final draw for that one. I'm expecting it any day, so I think they're almost there. And then just wanting to quickly thank the Chippewa County residents that help make our committees possible. I do not get to say yes or no to any project that comes through. I can do to make sure it's eligible, and then everything goes through a committee process. So again, your board member is Deb Chilson, and she meets with our board monthly. We have a meeting tomorrow. And then any of the loan requests, or many of them, go through our Chippewa County Loan Committee. Again, this is tied also to the Chippewa County Economic Development Corporation. And you can see the list of members there: Maureen Carlson, Deb Chilson, Ryan Hartzell, Melissa Peterson, Jordan Pospischil, Emmy Lou Stark, and Jamie Stuber. And also just a quick thank you to Charlie. Charlie works as an extension of our staff in that he helps to promote our programs or bring businesses to us if he sees that there's a need in their financing package. And so he's kind of our boots on the ground in that way as well. So I think with that, Scott or I would take any questions about the Regional Planning Commission or the Regional Business Fund at this time.
Supervisor Gehrig.
Yes. Have you ever had one of your loans default?
Yes, we have.
Procedure from there.
Yep. So everything that is a loan that's so we do have like a whole policy. If we do miss a payment, the business gets an email immediately. And so we try to remedy it pretty quickly by just getting the payment back. So we do have some slow payers is what we call them. So we email, phone, all of those sorts of things. And if it doesn't get to a point where we're remedying anything just as staff, then we're taking a memo to the board and potentially going through litigation. So we have attorneys that are not on staff, but that we work with and that we contract with. And so from time to time we do. If we did just go through, we file money judgments. Sometimes we do. We took back a piece of equipment this summer, and we were able to sell that at a sheriff's sale. So sometimes we're able to slowly gain those funds back. Sometimes we do have to just write off those amounts, and then if the person themselves, as the owner, files bankruptcy, then that's kind of the end of it. But we do have a fairly low delinquency rate, which is surprising because of who we are. We're helping a lot of startup companies that are just inherently risky because they're startup companies, and we're taking those deals that the bank has said no to. And if we are working with a bank or a credit union, we're in a second or third or fourth position collaterally, so a lot of times we just don't have anything else to attach ourselves to. But given all of that, we still, I think it's the Midwest mentality or whatever, but it's maybe 1.5–2% delinquency rate. So when we got all of our funds, first pot of dollars that we got was in 1995, 2005, 2007. All those pots of dollars collectively were about $17 million. We still have about $17 million today. So that's just goes to show the good committee process that we go through, and then I think the hard work that we do to communicate with our about 400 borrowers that we have right now. So I think that shows. So I've been told that's the same. I've never worked at a bank or credit union, but I've been told that's about the same as a bank or a credit union's delinquency rate.
Thank you.
Sorry, that was a long answer.
Supervisor Hennick.
I have a couple questions. Looking quickly at your aging data, does it appear that we're aging out slowly?
Yeah, yes, actually. Yeah, we're seeing a aging demographic throughout most of the region. I think each of the counties, we're seeing that from the 2020 census data. So it's something we're keeping an eye on. Chippewa County is pretty much, I think, average for the region. If anybody is not aging out, maybe it would be St. Croix County. Again, they have more of an urban influx from the Twin Cities as a result, but even Eau Claire County, we're seeing that kind of balanced even with the universities.
What's your projections over 20 and 50 years?
What is the projection? Good question. I'd hate to speculate too much other than to know that the trends are headed towards a more senior population. So I know talking with some of as Toby mentioned, we work closely with each of the economic development corporations, the EDCs in each of the counties. I know they're all working very feverishly to make sure there are opportunities to retain a younger workforce, educational opportunities for them as well. And we're seeing that happen in several different ways. So,
Follow-up question on that. Do you see the immigration making an impact positively or negatively on that aging out?
in Chippewa County, I'm not sure. I just anecdotally, I know, again, EDC in Barron County with some of those meat processing plant and such up there, Genio and others, they're seeing, again, through kind of the traditional, I say legal means, but through a normal process for immigrant population to come into the workforce. They're seeing some positive growth in that regard, but it's still certainly not keeping up with what is necessary for that workforce. Clark County is seeing some of the similar thing. Again, just different demographics that are happening. We're going, again, just finishing up the City of Colby's comprehensive plan. And, Abbey Foods are over there, and they are seeing a growing immigrant population participating in the workforce, but they too are still needing more. So it's not necessarily filling the gaps that are there.
And the loans you're given, last question, is the loans you're given, are they traditionally more or less expensive than normal sources?
So it depends. Right now, it's a little bit less. It's 4%. Is our kind of our traditional products that we have. That facade program has a 1% interest rate, so obviously that's more of an incentive program. That's why it was designed that way. But a few years ago, 4% was higher than what the banks were, so it kind of just depends. But 4% is where the board has set that interest rate at for the last 12 years.
Thank you.
Supervisor Guthman.
Thank you. I have been seeing a lot of articles, research about the impending impacts that we're going to continue to be experiencing in regard to water runoff, extreme storms, the destruction that happens. Various research articles say anywhere from $1 billion to way more than that. And I'm looking at your emergency preparedness, your hazard mitigation planning, the sustainability planning, of course, the water quality planning, all those kinds of things. And I'm from the Holcomb area, so we just went through that whole planning. But I didn't really necessarily hear, and I didn't attend all of the meetings, but I didn't necessarily hear a whole lot about how can we, as a county, really prepare for these really rapidly changing environmental conditions. And I'm wondering if you can speak to that.
Thank you. Great question. That is something we're going to be helping Chippewa County work on the hazard mitigation plan update next year. I didn't put that on the list because we're still waiting for confirmation from Wisconsin DNR on the funding to assist with that. So we've applied for, I guess technically it's grant funding, but financial assistance from the DNR to update your hazard mitigation plan. So we're hoping will includes, pre-disaster resiliency efforts, things of that sort, and it'll be in conjunction with emergency management officers here at the county and also individual communities, but again, starting at the county level. So yeah, hoping to make an impact in the hazard mitigation plan for next year. One example, we just finished St. Croix County hazard mitigation plan in September, and we even call that a multi-hazard mitigation plan because it's trying to be inclusive of all types of hazards, even things like cyber terrorism and a pandemic and things like that we all of a sudden have to be thinking about more regularly. So it's not just necessarily the kind of the natural resource hazard mitigation, but it's kind of all hazards.
Thank you. And then just a quick follow-up question / comment is addressing the aging population. I'm a nurse by background, so also looking at those pieces and what kind of impacts that's going to have for populations of all ages, throughout, whether they're young families or aging families. I'm thinking that from what your response was, that some of that piece would also be brought into that, those discussions.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yes, exactly. So there's a lot of overlap in a lot of the different planning efforts that we take on, and including the stakeholders. So there are a lot of shared resources in terms of who's participating in these planning efforts too. So yeah, thank you.
Supervisor Bowe.
Thank you. To follow up on Supervisor Guzman's last question, I keep thinking of emergency preparedness and hazard planning. One of the things that I don't see that you've covered, I appreciate everything you've done here, great stuff and really important for the region, but hospitals, birthing, childcare, what have the conversations been at the regional level that help address communities? I think with Barron County and Rice Lake not delivering babies anymore, we're in dire straits. Or if we want to talk about economic development, it's going to be hard for people to get excited about developing here if there's no place to deliver the next generation.
Sure. No, great question again as well. We were assisting with, it was kind of housed with the Eau Claire Area Chamber of Commerce, but not exclusive to, that region, but with the hospital closures earlier this year, as we were all impacted by in this area, we were helping with some of that facilitation, just in terms of the conversation. And then also a lot of, I kept mentioning grant administration, grant applications, and that's really where we kind of inject ourselves into the conversation is dealing with assisting finding financial resources. So there's a Chippewa Valley Health Cooperative that's been underway. We've been working with them, talking with them, looking at federal funding opportunities, and again, hosting that conversation with groups like even that Economic Development Administration, EDA, and how that kind of grassroots group could access other resources. So that's kind of where we participate in that. And then also in terms of providing demographic data and such to decision makers like yourselves. So as Toby was saying, we're not necessarily decision makers, we're the data providers and the kind of like facilitators and conduits to other resources.
Thank you.
Supervisor Kelly.
Thank you. Since you seem to know where everything's at for Chippewa County, and to follow up on Supervisor Gutham's point there on natural disasters and stuff, does Chippewa County have a hardened building for post natural disaster stuff, say a severe tornado or floods or anything like that for people to go to if something like that were to happen?
Oh, good question. We've actually assisted with the Northern Wisconsin State Fairgrounds last year. So it was not in this list, but it was in last year's list. Assisted with their storm shelter, and it's right in the fairgrounds. But that's really focused on the fairground and those who are attending the fair. But that's probably the closest that we've been participating is that we help with some of those grants. We're doing a similar kind of thing in Clark County. Town of Fremont is finishing up a similar structure. It's a shared storm facility and community center. And that's essentially what we assisted the fairgrounds with that grant. So again, yes, but also not exclusive to that. I'm not sure, maybe others would even know, there are other kind of storm shelters or like recovery centers, but that's the closest one we've been a part of most recently here in Chippewa County.
Okay, thank you.
See no more questions. Thank you.
All right.
Thanks for
Appreciate it. Thank you. Thanks for the time. Thanks for great questions as well.
Move on to department reports and the update on the firearms range closure project, recommendation to sell a property.
Thank you, Chair. My name is Randy Schultz. I'm the Chippewa County Administrator. I just wanted to go over the memo that I sent out to the county board back in September. I've gone to the Facility and Parks Committee and the Executive Committee, and they're good with the plan that I'm going to lay out in front of the board, and then you can let me know if you're okay with this. If you're not, then we'd have to make some adjustments, but kind of some of the history. So Resolution 3122 was passed for $1 million to ARPA to close the range. We didn't know at the time the cost. It's very difficult to anticipate because once a range is closed, it becomes a hazardous site. Hazardous makes me nervous, especially when you're talking lead. So we did put quite a bit of money towards that, just not knowing what that was going to be. Got the EPA involved. So it was difficult to estimate the cost. So then we started moving forward. It was actually June 9th, 2021 when it was closed. So obviously it's taken some time to kind of work through this process. We hired Sear Corp Engineering to do the work out there. They started really with soil and water samples to make sure that there wasn't any issues or concerns with that. We moved through that. We went to phase 1 where they recovered 22,000 pounds of lead. And if you think of lead shards, essentially that's what it is, very, very small shards of lead, most of it. So that's quite a bit of lead over the years. That cost was about $275,000. And then we moved forward for phase 2. And then where we are right now is at right around $380,000, a little more. We do have about $7,000 of additional expense we feel out there that's been set aside for, it actually has to do with some fiber work that's probably going to have to be done out there. So we really have no plan for that, that property that we could come up with, talking to the different committees and staff. One of the things we looked at is maybe a backup 911 center. That facility that is left on there really isn't designed for that. It's really a pole building. You know, structurally, you probably don't want a backup 911 center in there. So we really do not have a really good plan or to do that. My thought always is if the county can't use it for the greater good, it should go back to the citizens. So that's always how I've always kind of, my philosophy has always been. So that's what I'm proposing I propose that to Facility and Park and to the Executive Committee. So if you're okay with that, the plan would be to bring a resolution back to Facilities and Park in November. And then we'd bring a resolution back to the Executive Committee on December 3rd and then the full board. And that's when you make the final decision if you want to sell it or not. And really the mechanism to do that is you'd get an appraisal, you'd set the price of the appraisal, and then you'd put it out for sealed bids. And then whoever has the highest bid would receive the property. A couple things we have since this memo's gone out. In fact, it was the last 2 weeks. The EPA did finally come back and sign off on the property. There is no hazard on the property, and it will not show up even when they do when they go to sell the property. So they will not have to have a Class 1 or Class 2 environmental. So that's very good. We're very pleased with that. And then the other thing is, if you remember, this was all started from a lawsuit. Part of that lawsuit settlement was that the Rooney family would pay $75,000 towards the closure in order to receive that check the last couple days. So it's all kind of wrapped up. It's been a long process. I really give all the credit to Larry Ritzinger, our Facility and Parks Director, who really worked through this process from the beginning. So it's been quite the process when you're dealing with the EPA and has concerns. So that would be the idea. I can answer any questions you have, hopefully, or if you got any concerns on that.
Any questions for Randy? Supervisor Hennick.
Kind of off the books, Randy. I read your email today. I wanted to say, we're gonna miss you. You've done a good job. Wish we could talk you out of it.
You'd have to talk to my wife.
Just saying.
Thank you.
A little bit of time I've worked with you in the years past. Kudos to you.
Thank you. I
Wish you well.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Any more questions on firearms range? Very good outcome.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you. On to business items, Resolution 45-24, the resolution to approve 2024 tax levy to be collected in 2025.
Resolution 45-24, resolution to approve the 2024 tax levy to be collected in 2025, read by title only.
For a motion to approve?
Nick makes a motion.
Kelly will second.
We have a motion and a second. Okay, discussion?
Thanks, Chair. You approved the budget last Thursday, so this is a requirement by state statute to approve the levy, and nothing has changed. It's the $21,713,416 that you approved with the budget.
Do you have any questions? Comments? Okay, then we will call the vote. Can release. Okay, the levy is approved. Thank you. Item 2 is ordinance 17-24, ordinance to amend sections 2-350 and 2-361 of the Chippewa County Code of Ordinances. First reading.
Good evening, everybody. God, sorry, I think I've been here too long. So what we're really trying to do is update Chapter 2 for the finance areas. The first one that we're going to talk about is 2-350 is the annual budget area. So really under Section A, I just really wanted to really detail it out more of how the budget is approved. It's from a department balance, a department basis. It's the total department. Any overdrafts in number B, that would be that you would have more expenditures and revenues in a department, that it would be part of our annual report that we give in from fourth quarter. It's usually in May. The finance director would give that report, so you would know what had happened. And if there is some issue like overall funding for the county, it would be up to the county administrator to decide to bring forward, if he's worried that, or they are worried that there isn't funding available within the budget in other departments, that they could always bring through a resolution from the contingency fund for your approval. Let's see here. And then surpluses, that is the opposite. So that would mean you would have more revenues at the end of the year than you have expenses. And that is what has happened in the past couple of years. We've shown you how we've taken extra money from the year end and how we've moved it to different projects. That's been part of that. It would have been in May, that presentation that I had given. And usually the county administrator is responsible to come up with the ideas of where they want the money to go. So let's see here. And that would be in that fourth quarter presentation, usually in May. Section D, capital improvements. We just added that area about the CIP program is presented annually to you guys, usually in February. The next section is E under investments. It is E, right? Okay, can't read all the red. This is just updating some amounts and stuff for the investment area. I had worked in conjunction with the treasurer to help come up with this area. The next one is the county aid bridge petitions. It used to be years ago that it was September 15th. Well, guess what? That's really late to get the information for the budget because we usually give everything to you guys by the 1st of October. And we've been practicing that it's been July 1st that the county or the highway commissioner has been asking the towns for this information for county aid bridge petitions. So we're just updating the date to what we've been doing, the practice. The next section is the Facilities Improvements Readiness Fund. So this is a new account. I believe it was established in 2013, and we've never had any rules or any information about this account. So I wanted just to put something in here to have some clarity of how it's funded and what it's used for. And then it's only used for unexpected expenses. You know, one year, I think it was that year that we actually had a chiller go out. It was over $600,000 that we had to come up with some money. So that's why we wanted to have some, because that's a very a large idea of what this expense fund is for. But there's other things. You can have hot water heaters. We've had the jail chiller, the walk-in cooler has had issues. So we had to replace the compressors and all that kind of thing. So that's how we use that, because we couldn't wait for 1.5 to 2 years to bring it to CIP for you because it had to be fixed. Otherwise, we wouldn't have any food. So, and then the next area is the general fund unassigned balance. That it's saying that we will maintain the 30 to 40% of the general fund the expenditures or percentage. I mean, so the next section is the sales tax, and really, I'm not really changing too much in the sales tax either. I just wanted to clarify that if there were multiple sources of funding for a project, that would be the funding order of it. And then upon completion of those approved projects, that we would want to make sure that we return any sales tax that was for that project. Because then otherwise, if we don't do that, it's in direct violation of your ordinance, because your ordinance only allows for sales tax to be used for capital purchases. And if they have, let's say, $25,000 less and we let the department keep it, they're using it for operational purposes and not for capital purchases, so then it's in violation. So that's why I wanted to make that clarification. And we have been practicing that way, so just so you know that we've been doing it that way. I just wanted it in the record so people would know. And I believe that's everything. Any questions? I know it's a lot of finance stuff, but any questions?
Apparently, yes.
So-
Supervisor Hennick.
So what you're doing with what you just talked about in the last item, it makes sense to me, to get an absolute clarification.
Yeah.
Not gray area. Earlier you mentioned when you don't spend the money, that the county administrator looks for ways of spending it the next year. Did I understand that correctly?
Well, yes, that's operational budget area that we're discussing there. So if in the event in your operations budgets, because right here under sales tax, that's for CI capital improvement projects. The other part is for the operations areas of the budgets.
But we've done a good job. There's been excess money, and it does not go back to the taxpayers. It just gets used for next year's operations or something.
Right. Well, and it doesn't, so what happens is we go and put it to other projects and stuff so that we're using those funds so we don't have to increase our tax levy and rates to the citizens to help offset that.
And what committee did this go through and get discussed?
Executive. You mean these changes?
Yes,
Yeah, the executive committee.
they improved it. I'm good with that.
Supervisor Seidlitz.
I'm on the opposite end. I'm a little more worried about the overdraft expenditures here, on letter B. Because what happens if all the departments go overdrafts? Ain't that gonna affect our budgets for the following year?
Yeah, and that's where, in that case, is where the county administrator would bring forward a resolution to the county board to use those contingency funds. Right now, we have about $750,000 in there. That's what we'd have to do. And if it was more than $750,000, there'd have to be more discussions about what they're gonna do, but.
And if, say a department continually has problems meeting their budgets and going over. Is there a contingency plan about that, or is it just
Well, really, it's,
administrator?
yeah, it's really the administrator and finance director are going to have to work with that department to come up with options to help talk about different things that they could be doing from, I'll let.
Yeah, I just wanted, this has happened. It happened in human services, obviously, with out-of-home placements. We've came up with a multi-year plan about how to increase the levy for that. We had to bring different things to the county board. We really look at if they're going over, why are they going over? Obviously, is the big issue. Some things are out of their control, some things are in their control. We don't purposely under budget for anything. We want a realistic budget, so hopefully that doesn't happen. But if it is, we're on it. We monitor it during the year, so it's not a surprise to us, and it wouldn't be a surprise to the county board if that would continue to happen.
Yeah, so basically the words, there shall be no overdrafts, have been overdrafts, even though it says no overdrafts, you have to deal with anyways, so kind of just getting rid of that term, no overdrafts.
Yeah, it's impossible to, everybody can't come in exactly on budget. It's just not realistic.
Okay. Supervisor Gehrig?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My question is actually for Corp Counsel. If this can be an all-inclusive motion or if it has to be piecemealed? All these changes.
You can make amendments to whatever portion you'd like to.
No, if we make a motion, if it can be one motion for all of it, or if each individual change has to be separate.
You can make them as part of one motion, all the different parts that you'd like to change.
Thank you.
Supervisor Kelly?
Thank you, Chair. I guess like in line C, section C, if the county administrator deems it necessary, the county administrator is authorized to transfer unallocated year-end funds to other non-lapsing funds. What does that mean?
So what that means is that if we have other, like, let's just say there's some department, finance, for example, I'm a non-lapsing fund. I'm a lapsing fund, so it goes straight to the general fund. We have a lot of accounts in our general fund, for example, and under land conservation and forest management, they have a lot of non-lapsing funds. We can go put that money towards a non-lapsing fund for future use for something. One of the items that we did for this last year was we put $100,000 in the sheriff's department budget from 2023 funds to help pay for 2024 costs for a juvenile that we have that's over in the Eau Claire Detention Center. That is not part of our budget. We don't budget that. So that's really what that's doing, is being able to move the money.
So was the county administrator like in charge of, and you, the finance director, in charge of that before? Like this isn't something new?
No, we have been doing this for a lot of years.
Okay.
I would say at least 10 years, if not longer.
Red confuses me. And then I think it's in section G. The county administrator, that's a whole new section? Is that what we're, who had oversight of that? Or you said you've been doing that since 2013?
Yes, we've had this a new account, but we've never had it explained of how the funding works, of how it gets funded or what it's used for. There's nothing anywhere that says that anywhere, so we wanted to make sure to spell that out in here so that everybody would know.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Because it has a limit of 500,000, so I wanted to make sure the county board knows that this is what that account is for.
Okay. All right, thank you for that.
Supervisor Schubert?
Yeah, back to B. Little concern, we were saying that department can't stay within its budget. Being part of the business, we stay in budget all the time. I understand where an administrator can move things from one bucket to another throughout for that budget year. It happens all the time, wonderful. But having a department on its own be able to violate its budget is concerning. But you're saying it happens all the time, but why is it happen? Why is it being allowed to happen when the law or the rules say they can't? That's concerning.
Yeah, there's just things you can't control. You could have a bad winter. Not going to tell the highway department they can't go plow. Either there's mandated services we have to provide. If you have 50 kids that are in out-of-home placements, you have to pay for that. You don't have a choice. So there's things that are.
Budgets for that though, right? You have such.
No,
move it, so.
we budget averages. I mean, we look at 3-year averages, 5-year averages, and I mean, we budget on averages, but you could have a year like in 2016 to 2018, the out-of-home placements went, I mean, quadrupled. It was crazy. There's absolutely no way to stay in budget during that. Brian talks about they had a February, that was $1 million February, winter for 1 month. Can't stay in budget doing that. Things are going to come up and things you can't control. Typically, everybody comes, I mean, it's really close for budgets and things, you know, we're always really good at budgeting and we're typically really close. And the county's never had to go into being over budget totally. We've always been able to compensate with different areas where budgets are low, like you might have staffing shortages.
That's normal, just moving things from, but that's a deliberate line act that you provide, which is understandable, that's normal business.
Sure.
It's fine. But my concern is that the department moving out of budget, or you providing and you breaking the budget, and then you're coming to us afterward.
Yep. Yep, that happens. That happens all. Yeah.
We're now $1 million in debt because we overspent. Now what are you going to do about it?
Yep.
Instead of beforehand saying, hey, this is our concern, we're going to hit this budget, what do we do?
Yeah.
Avenues.
Yep, yep, and that's why we have a lot of contingency funds available within the department. Human Services had $1 million contingency fee or contingency budget that we blew through in 3 years. So the good thing about having that contingency, you can start planning, you can start understanding that, hey, we got to put more money. We did things like we put $300,000 of sales tax into the highway department. We took $200,000 of levy out of there and put that towards DHS because we could see the budget kept on going over. There's just things it's out of your control. We don't want that to be consistent. And if there's, you know, if that continues to happen, then you need to look at me and look at Lori and ask what's going on. The department heads, we do a very good job of budgeting here. I'm not concerned about, you know, things do happen and things go over, but it can happen in your own personal business. You could have a disaster, you could have a flood, you could have all kinds of things. You got to go get a loan, you got to pay that off. That's going over your budget. It's really no different. We have contingency. We don't have to go out for a loan, but we do have contingencies within the county to pay for those overtures.
Okay, any more questions? All right. Thank you.
Everybody.
And this was a first reading, so. So moving through the agenda, County Board Chair appointments, there are none. Administrator appointments, there are none. Agenda items for future consideration. Let me know if you have any on your mind things. And before we move on, I would just like to say we had a very consequential president election on Tuesday that was much anticipated ahead of time with training and everything going because it was going to be well watched. And I would just like to put a shout out to our village clerks, our town clerks, the city clerks, and mostly our the county clerk. And I believe if you were watching the website, I was maybe 11:30.
Yeah.
About 11:30 at night, it was done, which
Our
was
smoothest selection ever.
an absolutely wonderful job. And one thing related to that, the ability for us to do that, to disagree, to vote, and have that is, yesterday we were honoring our veterans, and there's many on this board who have served, and I would just like to also thank them for their service, and also some of them have carried things from their service on. We've had various things that they have, and we have one in particular who is actually fighting a life battle for that, and I'd just like to thought for that. And I think every one of them would look you in the eye and said, was it worth your service? And I think they would say, damn right it was. So just thank them, and then we can move on to item 12.
Eric's going to make a motion to adjourn.
All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you very much.
I started this meeting with 198 emails, now to 30.
Amazing what happens.
Wasn't going to work.
Well, then like a bunch of it was the Madison State Sheriff's Association. The sheriffs asked we use for a phone vendor. I'm trying to compile all the phone vendors. Well, there's 72 sheriffs and everybody responded, so every time they responded, they got an email. It's like, I hate it. It's a website, it's a group text, right? You can't go in and respond to this one.
Hours of being clerks and
Well, I trained 120 in for 2 3-hour sessions.
minutely out a minute.
Then in 60 people, and I did 4